Very excited. Very excited to have you here with us this evening. My name is Nicole Netherton. I'm the Executive Director of Travis Audubon, and I'm so glad you've joined us tonight. If you're a member, thank you so much for your continued support. If you're not yet a member, please join us. You can go to the membership page on our website, travisaudubon.org. I have a couple of quick announcements for this evening. We just wrapped up our most successful birdathon to date, and we want to thank you all for participating and helping us achieve such great results. Our grand total, which includes all the donations from the birding brawl as well, congratulations again, Caleb and River, was $40,032.23, which is our biggest birdathon success by far. So thank you all so much for helping us have such a successful year. We're starting to wind down some of our events for this summer, but we all wanted to highlight a couple that are happening this month that we really hope that you'll join us. On May 21st, which is this Saturday, Laura Joseph will share the history of her amazing purple martin colony in South Austin, as well as showing off the neighborhood's involvement as landlords. There are babies from newborns to almost ready to fledge in the houses, and you can get some great close-ups of the birds and enjoy her property and gardens. It's a great family-friendly event. I really hope you'll come. It is free, but registration on our website is required. You can go to our website for more information, and please sign up so that you can receive directions to get to the event. And then on May 26th, we'll be hosting another round of bird trivia at Oscar Blues Brewery. It's very hard to say that. Oscar Blues Brewery, 6 p.m. on May 26th. It's $10 per team, maximum 6 people when you register early, and $15 per team at the door. We had a great time before the pandemic doing this trivia event. We really hope that you'll join us. It was a lot of fun. We'll be covering lots of bird topics, including pop culture, history, and more. You don't really have to be a birder to participate. And the winning team will win a $50 gift card to Oscar Blues. So please join us for bird trivia. And now we're ready to get started. I'd like to thank you in advance for muting your microphone and turning off your camera to minimize distractions. Please feel free to enter your questions in the chat. We'll have a Q&A session at the end. And you can look for a recording of this meeting on our YouTube channel after we're done. So it's my pleasure to introduce our friend and member of Travis Audubon, Sachin Agarwal, who is here to introduce tonight's fantastic speaker. Hello, Sachin. Oh, you're on mute, Sachin. There you go.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Nicole. And I think, first of all, I just want to congratulate you and Travis Audubon on such a, good birdathon in these times. I'm just so happy about that.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. So I think some of you guys have maybe attended some of the virtual sessions we had with Juan. But irrespective, actually, Juan was supposed to be here this week in Austin, but for various reasons, numbers and all, he's not here. And I'm actually disappointed because I was looking forward to birding with him. I'm going to go ahead and maybe get started with the normal, regular introduction to Juan, which I've done many, many times. And then I want to add a few words which are not in the introduction. So Juan Diego grew up, in a very rural part of Costa Rica. And interestingly, it was his uncle who was actually a poacher who introduced him to birds. And initially, as a young boy, he helped his uncle find difficult birds, and catch them for illegal trade. And I think with time, Juan realized, this was not really making him happy. He started spending more time watching the birds, the behavior and all. And then slowly his just path changed more towards appreciating them and not capturing them. And he kind of moved into being a birder. He went to the university and got a Bachelor of Arts in Ecotourism. He earned a Master of Science in Sustainable Development. Throughout his undergrad and graduate career, he continued to work as a birding guide. So he paid for his own, college. He's been active in many bird-related projects, including co-founding NGOs like the Cerulean Warbler Conservation Costa Rica, He has his own agency also in Costa Rica. It's called Lifer Tours, and he partners with my company Mowgli Expeditions to take people from US to Costa Rica. Having said that, the main thing that I wanted to kind of share with you about Juan is, when you go birding and you meet different guides, there are a lot of guides who are like, hey, look at that bird. Okay, we saw that bird. Hey, look at that bird. We saw that bird. And then there are people who are like, hey, did you look at that field mark, the bars on the tail? Hey, did you see that eye ring? And then there are people who are just so excited about seeing different birds. And Juan, honestly, is, I've taken people to Belize, Costa Rica, Colombia, but Juan is really, really amazing in combining all those three things. He finds great birds for you. And, he knows the different field marks. He's very knowledgeable. And, his enthusiasm is just infectious, so it's just so wonderful to actually go ahead and board with him. So if you actually ever go to Costa Rica and, you're going directly, just two of you, you should go with, Juan. If you're going in a group, get in touch with me and we can organize something with Juan. But, he's the person to really, really do birding in Costa Rica. So that's a little extra I wanted to add from my side about how I feel about Juan. Having said that, I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to Juan. And I think he has a nice presentation prepared for you. And we'll take it from there. Thank you.
Thank you, Sachin, for that great introduction. That was almost my complete talk in an introduction. You mentioned a lot of the things I will mention in the talk, but I will go deeper in the details and some other aspects of it. But first of all, thanks to Travis Audubon Society for all the members for being part of this organization and making happen, make all these wonderful events possible, and also to involve people down here in the tropical region like me. I'm here right now in Costa Rica, in the northern part of Costa Rica, from my tiny little office on a pretty rainy day outside, and I'm very happy to be sharing my thoughts with a whole community of wonderful people up in the States. And happy to see some familiar faces, by the way. I see Sharon over there. I see Isaac Sanchez, by the way, and then those are all friends of mine that have been here in Costa Rica. Of course, Sachin, that is a great friend as well. So I will immediately start with sharing my screen so you can see a few slides I have prepared for you. So I hope you can see the screen. Everybody can see the screen. Well, I mean, Sachin, can you see it? It's all fine over there?
Yep, looks good.
Okay, now what bird is in the screen? This is a test. No, it's kidding. It's kidding. You don't have to say it. This bird, it's a yellow-faced grass squid. Grass squid. It's a tropical bird, tiny little bird. It has a big range, and they like the grasslands. They like the pastures, cattle pastures. They like to sit on fence, on the fence posts and the wires as well. And then they start calling. That I took that picture, and the bird is actively calling. They move a lot when they are in the pastures, but when they call, they stop for a few seconds. They put the head up, and then they open the bill. The song is a long trill, and that is a very interesting call, but it's also the weakest point. So every time I see a bird like this, I can't stop feeling like I owe an apology to all these tiny little birds, because I have hit so many of these birds with clay pellets, but so many. When I was a kid growing up, every time I see one of these birds, I remember that moment. You wait until they call, so they stay for a second, and then we used an like aluminum tube, like a little pole, that we put then a clay pellet that we take from the river, we put it in one side, and then we blow the other side. That throws a clay pellet super fast. And this bird is about this size, it's like the size of my thumb. and then you hit it, you stun the bird goes to the ground, and then you run and grab the bird, and the bird is yours, you know. Woo! And that's what I grew up doing as a young kid in Costa Rica. And then, yeah, I mean, this is my talk is called From Poaching to Bird Guiding. I simplified a little bit the name of the talk. And this is the story of how birding changed my life. But not only that, I mean, it's also the story of how I found some like value, unexpected value on the birds and the birding in general. And I think how we all can find that value if we see these little details that life put in front of us. And I will start going back to to present time, to the very last tour I was guiding. You know, I work as a bird guide in Costa Rica. And the very last tour I was guiding was with this guy in the picture. This is my friend. Well, I'm not gonna say his name. You know, I'll leave it private. You know, because you never know whose friends are in here. You know, you better just leave it. Even if he told me that I can use his picture. But there we are. I mean, that's a familiar area. If you have been in Costa Rica before, that trail, it's in La Selva Biological Station. And he was, everything started because he, maybe about a month ago, he called me and he said, you know, I'm divorcing from my wife, and this is costing me about $5 million, this divorce. And I'm crazy, and I want to go to Costa Rica to shoot some birds and just, you know, forget about all this. And we were in the field this day. I mean, he was shooting a great tinamou. This is what I call the tinamou prey. This is how you gotta get if you want to get a low, nice, eye-level angle with a tinamou. And then we were talking about, and he said, you know, I'm just want to spend more time in Costa Rica in the tropics, because I realized I'm, you know, 75 years old, and then I'm, you know, I accumulated some money. He's a pretty wealthy man. And he said, but, you know, Juan Diego, how much money do I want to die with? How much money do I want to die with? And, can you hear me? Yeah. And yeah, I start asking that question, you know, like to myself, like, how much money do I want to die with? You know, like, and then I can ask that question to the audience here. I mean, unfortunately, we are not there to do it personally, but if I ask you this question to any of you, I mean, how much money do you want to die with? And I'm pretty sure the answer will be none. You know, like, if my family is doing fine, why I need, you know, money when I go, you know, when I'm dead? And this is precisely a very important point. And also I realize that I'm ready to die at that point, but not really yet. But then I realized that it's a very important point. Like, you know, you really need to start putting your priorities correctly. This is, by the way, the picture he was taking. This is a great tinamou. That's the exact same picture he took that day. And then is when I, you know, spending time with my friend Jeff in the field there, I couldn't stop, you know, going back in time and thinking about when everything started in my life. And this was in, you know, years ago when I was 10 years old, 11 years old. I grew up in a very, very rural, non-developed and kind of poor area of the country. That is me with 11 years. I'm the one on the right, by the way. And I was thinking, like how is life, you know, for people like me growing here. I was, to be more precise, this is an aerial picture of my house. I mean, far from above. And my house is actually one of these tiny little houses. I don't know if you can see my pointer, but one of these tiny little houses there's where I grew up. My father was the person that actually built the road to get to the area where he met my mom. And then they both raised me in there in between cattle farms. You know, I was taking care of the cattle. And then, when I was in kindergarten, my father passed away. And then my mother, you know, stayed with audience. I mean, with 4 kids. I was the youngest of the 4 kids. The oldest one, my oldest brother, has a disability, so he cannot talk, he cannot communicate correctly. So we always ended up developing like a sign language that we use, and we can communicate to each other pretty well, but it's not the universal sign language. It's just a sign language only we understand. And that was an interesting thing, but I didn't have any figure of like a parent, like a dad that I can follow. So I started trying to find that, playing in these fields, and then the only figure I can find was my uncle. And my uncle was a poacher, a bird poacher. He was running, catching birds in this vast forest. Because all this forest that is right next to my house is the Juan Castro Blanco National Park, or as we call it, the Water National Park. And all this forest is full of interesting birds. But, for my uncle, he just needed a hand to catch this bird over here. This is it's called Black-faced Solitaire, and it's a super, super good songster. They have great voices, and it's exactly the reason. I will actually see if I can play back this call. Let me see if I can find the, oops, I don't know. Let me just get this song. No, I don't have it. I was the Black-faced Solitaire has a beautiful song, and that was the only reason why my uncle started training me to actually find these birds. Because one important thing here is that the birds that live in the top of the mountain have a different dialect than the birds that live in the lower part of the mountain. So my uncle was always trying to, finding kids like me and my cousins to help him carry the little cages that we used to get this bird to the top of the mountain. So we were using this type of cages to put with a bird inside, and we carry these things, we climb up the trees, and then we put it in there and wait for the bird to see if the bird comes down. And that was kind of the only activity I was doing with, if it was time with my dad, but it wasn't, and it was interesting in some way, but at one point we just get tired of just getting, catching the birds and carrying all these cages up to the top of the mountain. And that was something we didn't enjoy that much. But we didn't have any binoculars or any way to actually discover other birds. So we started just going up to the woods and just leaving the cages down there, and then just climbing up the trees and just watching random birds in there. We started catching birds with the clay pellets, with blowguns and the clay pellets, just to identify the birds, and then ask my uncle what was the name of this bird or that bird, and we put funny names to each bird in our own way. And that was very interesting, and it didn't last for much. Fortunately for me, at one point in my life, I met a guy from South Carolina. His name is maybe familiar for some of you. His name is Bill Hilton Jr. And he was studying ruby-throated hummingbirds to band them and then track them up in the US. He runs a research center in the US. And then he asked for help to someone who can help him track down high densities of ruby-throated hummingbirds in Costa Rica. And fortunately for me, I had a friend who knew this guy, and then he said hey, Juan, maybe you can help with this. And then we started, looking around the country, and we ended up finding a good concentrations of ruby-throated hummingbirds in aloe fields in the northern part of Costa Rica. This was actually my friend who found this, and I went to help. And then, I started working with ruby-throated first. And then, as everything in down here in the tropics, sometimes people in the US take for granted how you work and how you find your living. But down here in Costa Rica, finding the way to make your living, it's a very complicated task. And making profit out of this is a very, very complicated task. And we started thinking about how we can, make our own salaries out of, grabbing birds and finding birds. But then many years ago, after that, we got the word from a friend in the US that was saying that there was some people in the US trying to save a tiny little bluebird, that if we were able to find good concentration, we were maybe able to get a grant to help the bird. And that bird happens to be the Cerulean warbler that it's in the picture here. Those two pictures I took those pictures. I'm not very good because this bird moves really fast down here in the tropics. But we started an organization called the Cerulean Warbler Conservation to try to locate high concentrations of Cerulean warblers. And many years after that work started, ended up with establishing this organization and actually grabbing and banding the first Cerulean warblers ever in Costa Rica, which the picture on the left shows a Cerulean warbler with bands that my friend Ernesto put it on them. And this organization is still running right now. And I'm not a part of the organization anymore because I have other duties to attend. But it was interesting how, you know, tiny little birds that breed in the US were connecting, you know, people down here in the tropics. But this I'm going forward in time. Before that, I was still, you know, the young kid catching birds and trying to find those concentrations of ruby-throated hummingbirds. And as I was doing that, I still remember, I want to tell you this story about, you know, things that happened in my life. This picture, I don't think I ever showed this picture to anybody. And this is an interesting story of when I was starting with this, I was doing some research with poisoning on birds, because the Cerulean warblers like to hang around in coffee fields, and coffee fields, in shaded coffee fields, do not use pesticides. So we were trying to find some, trying to find something that links the Cerulean warbler with the pesticides, the lack of pesticides in the coffee farms. And then I got an email from a friend, from the Dean of Costa Rican Ornithology, saying like, hey, Juan, you want to be part of this, this group of the United Nations that studies poisoning on migratory birds? And I said, well, I have absolutely no idea of this topic, but let's do it. You know, and I was a young kid, you know, with no way. I mean, I've never been on an airport. I've never been close to traveling in my life. And then I said, well, you know, this is the United Nations. If I have a chance to travel somewhere, it's with them, you know. And then I got into this group. And then I get this this email, so for, you know, offering someone to be the vice chair of the working group. And I was a young kid, you know, I had no idea what I was doing, but I said like, well, you know, if they want to take someone to one of these trips, it's going to be the vice president. It's not going to be Juan Diego, the guy that has no idea. This is a mailing list of 1,000 people. And then I sent it, something happened. There was this big meeting of the United Nations occurring in Tunisia. And then they said like, well, we need someone to go there. Everybody in the US, everybody in Canada, in most of America rejected to go to Tunisia. And then they said, well, we're gonna take this offering from this guy from Costa Rica that it's offering for vice chair. And they said like, yeah, maybe that guy. And then they said like, well, Juan Diego, you wanna go? I mean, you can go. I mean, then send me this letter and said like, just print this letter, show it in the airport, and they will, you know, they will take you to Tunisia in the airport. You know, and I said like, no way. I was a young kid, you know, I was still starting my university, and I have never been on an airport. You know, I've never been on a plane, never been close to a plane. You know, where I live 3 hours from the airport. You know, I didn't have a driver license, I didn't have anything. And then I said like, went to my mom with this printed letter and said like, Mom, you know, they said that if I show this in the, you know, in the airport, they're gonna take me to Tunisia. And my mom immediately went like, no, that's a scam. That for sure is a scam. And I said like, no, well, I'm gonna try, you know, please take me to the airport. I wanna show this, and then we'll see if they take me to Tunisia. And I indeed went to the airport. My mom took me there, and I went to this paper, show it to the counter. And then the counter immediately like started watching the paper, and then my mom was right behind me. I can hear my mom saying like, I told you it's a scam. And then the counter goes back to the boss. And then like 10 minutes later comes out with my tickets. Like this ticket goes to Switzerland, this ticket goes to, you know, Spain, Switzerland, and Tunisia. And there you go. And I just turn around to my mom and say like, it's real. And I managed to make it to this, this picture is taken in Tunisia, in the capital of Tunisia, Tunis. And I was, as you can see, everybody in the picture looks like if they know what they are doing, but me. And then, you know, it's an interesting story, and it's, I still remember when I left the plane, you know, I got into the plane to Madrid, and I printed all the papers of poisoning on migratory birds, and I started reading everything. So I left Costa Rica, you know, like a completely ignorant on poisoning, and I arrived in Madrid like a completely ignorant on poisoning, but very sleepy. And I managed to actually try to make a good performing on this stage, you know, like I don't want to be like a total ridiculous on this. And I said, I have to survive this, you know, like I made it here, you know, like I made it here. I was catching birds just a few years ago. And then I made it to Tunisia, and this United Nations group. And I remember when I get to this audience, I mean, I barely speak Spanish by then. I speak English by then. I have a really bad English. And then I got there, and I remember the president of the work. I took this picture right here, and I remember the president of the working group was a German guy, a very tall German guy with a strong presence in the auditorium. And then he comes to this and then gives this wonderful speech on poisoning on migratory birds. And then he looked at me like, "You want to say some words?" And I just look at him and say, like, just what you said. I agree with all what you said. And then I continue. The meeting finished this day kind of relatively early, and I go out of this, you know, the hotel we were staying in Tunisia. I had no idea what I was doing there, very frustrated. And then they did a field trip the next day to the Atlas Mountains, and I met this guy that was the only representation from the continent of America. His name was Pierre Mignou from Canada. He was a total expert on poisoning of migratory birds, the best one of the whole area, I mean, the whole continent. And then he was a hardcore birder, and he was really working hard trying to find one bird. His most wanted bird was this one here, the Mosier's redstart, an endemic bird from the Atlas Mountain of North Africa. And then that day on that walk, you know, I said, like, I'm just gonna find this bird for this guy, you know, like, and then I start chasing the bird, you know, like I did in the old times, you know, walking up the trails and then up and down, and then I heard a bird that sounds like something I didn't know, and then I said, like, this could be it, and I found it. And this picture, I took this picture in Tunisia for Mr. Pierre Mignou, and then I said, like, after I found this bird for Pierre Mignou, he said, like, he went totally, you know, like so happy, so joyful for this, that the next days in the meeting, he was, you know, my best friend. You know, he was supporting everything I said. And when it was my time to actually do something on these meetings, and then I said something, whatever stupid idea I was trying to share and was not able to say it well because I didn't have enough English to do it, he immediately will stand up and said, you know, what Juan Diego is trying to say is actually this. And it will make my idea, you know, totally better. And then I said, like, wow, you know, like I ended up this meeting as a hero, you know, like as a young hero that made it there, and I always had good ideas. And it was all thanks to finding the Mosier's redstart to Mr. Mignou. And then is when I realized, like, you know, all these years chasing birds, you know, illegally hunting and extracting birds from this national park maybe works for something. And then I started, you know, after this trip, of course, I get a lot more confident. And then I said, like, hey, you know, I did this, I can do everything. And I managed to go to, you know, put together a trip. I started the idea with, you know, you can make money with this thing, you know, finding rare birds, remote places for people. And then all this that I've been practicing as a kid actually worth for something. And this is a trip I did to Panama, the Darien, the Eastern Darien, where the jungle is super deep, looking for some group of, like, you know, super professional bird photographers that were looking for great images of a harpy eagle eye level. And I said, like, well, yeah, let's do it. And I went with a, you know, I bought that horse in Darien, and then I went for 7 days looking for the best nest for harpy eagle in multiple places, camping in the Darien, and ended up, you know, working together, the group, and then put it together. They were Chinese photographers. And I took them there to the Darien, and they got excellent, images. I mean, this is my image. It's not as good as them, but they got excellent images of harpy eagle. And I was, finally feeling that, that all this effort, all this training for years, looking for black-faced solitaires, actually worth for something. This eventually took me to many places, including the Pyrenees. Same thing, looking for rare birds, looking for that, and always using these skills that I didn't know that it will be helpful for me. But then even with all of that, I think I always thought that these skills of finding things might help for something bigger, not only find, rare birds for people. And then this, probably one of the big points that mark my brain, somehow my memory, is this one here. This that I'm about to show, just to give you some background. This video, is the only and first images of those babies, and the first and only images of that nest structure. And actually, this one, just to give you more expectation, this actually made it to this book here, The Ant Pitas and Net Eaters of the World. The description here of the bird that you are going to see right now is the one that is in this book, because it's the only one available. And this one, I will let you know. Hopefully it works, because if it doesn't work, it's going to be very disappointing. But I think it will work. I will just put it with the video and let it go. Wait, it's coming. It's coming. Wait, it's turning. Look at the baby. Yum, 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 yum. There it goes. I recorded that video. And as I told you, this is the only one that is available, and the first one that was discovered of the nest and the babies of the thicket ant pita. Thicket ant pita. There it goes, covering the babies. Excellent, right? So this happened one day. I was walking in the national park, Arenal Volcano National Park in Costa Rica, found this bird. I was on my own, and the bird has a little worm on its bill. I started following the bird. These birds live in like totally impenetrable, like blinded thickets, thickets, the densest thicket you can ever imagine, like just a wall of vegetation. And they live inside there. And I was trying to see this bird just to get some images, and I found one with a worm in its bill. I followed it for about an hour in the dense thicket, no, maybe less than that, 20 minutes. And then I eventually found that the bird, guide me to his nest. And it was the first images. And I was thinking, like, after I got this, I was thinking, like, it's interesting, but I didn't know it was new. And then, of course, over time, I found that the nest was new, the eggs were new for science. And I said, like, well, a lot of these skills of, finding rare stuff is not only useful for, for making tours and guiding people, it's also useful for, finding progress in science, finding something completely new that nobody knew, that nobody have an idea that exists, and it's there, is in front of my eyes, and I might have, the power to do it, but it's just with time that you find those things. But then I started thinking further in that, because even finding a nice nest is great, and I was very proud to be in the book, but it's still, not enough. I mean, it's still something to start, going in my head, like, and then, like, this image you see right now on the screen is actually the image right above of where I am right now. Right now, I'm broadcasting from this. I don't know if you see the arrow here, the pointer. But my house right now is this one here. The last, one of these red little roofs that you see on the lower left of the image, in case you don't see it. There is where I'm right now. So if I go outside, I probably can't wave to you. No, I don't think it works that way, but well, anyway, this is my house from above. And all you see to the right of my house, all those bars, those green bars you see there, are pineapple fields, pure pineapple. All that was not too long ago covered with pristine primary rainforest. And right now, what you see around my house, those little trees you see around my house, are streams, are creeks, the last tiny little rivers that are left. And the only reasons there are trees there is because there's a river, and then it's too evident if you cut a tree on a river and people want to live this. But everything else is totally destroyed. And this block of forest you see on the right of this image, the upper right corner, that is the little, last bastion of forest that is standing close to my house. Is where when I have, some free time, I will try to run over pineapple fields and go to this block of forest. There are some nice red cap mannequins dancing in there and some other interesting things. But every day I can see it with my own eyes in Costa Rica, how they cut these trees down to make more space to the pineapple. There's no, the guys doing these pineapple fields are friends of mine, like people, family of my girlfriend. And it's because pineapple is just expanding as fast as you can't imagine how fast it's expanding right here. And I'm pretty sure in maybe less than about 5 years, that block of forest you see in the upper right corner will totally disappear. I have total confidence it will happen. It doesn't matter if it's, what we do here, it will disappear for only one reason. And that reason is because it's impossible to stop it. Unless, and this is probably the most important words I will say in all this presentation right now, the only way we can stop these things, it's if if 1 hectare of forest on this little patch here produces the same amount of money as 1 hectare of pineapple field right here. And then I went further on this idea, I was thinking about this idea a lot. And I said, I went and asked my friends, my friends and family that are running pineapple fields right next to me here, how much is this hectare of pineapple producing to you? And they said, well, it's about $6,000 per year. What is this pineapple giving to me? And I went to the local hotel, not in this patch of forest, but there is a hotel close from here. And then I went to them and then said, well, how big is your private reserve this? And then how much, will produce every hectare if we can do that? And they said, in average, every hectare of this particular, businessman running a hotel, a nature lodge close from here, he said it was producing something around $300 and $600 per hectare of forest per year. There is absolutely no way we can save on any of this if it's not producing in the same terms. And then is when you start thinking there's a lot of ways. I have no idea how you make this. How you make 1 hectare of forest produce the same as 1 hectare of pineapple. But what I'm sure is that we're not going to save any of these forests if we don't make that equal. And this is part of the thing to start thinking. This picture right here is the Children's Eternal Rainforest, the largest private reserve located not too far from my house either, but about an hour and a half drive. And it's just pristine, huge primary forest. And all of that, it's also in danger if we don't reverse this. In the long term, the development is just gonna get there. It's just unstoppable. And how we do it, I have honestly no idea. But one of the potential solutions we can think about is through tourism. And this is a group, this is a picture, I'm in the center there, and this is a group of the Indiana Audubon Society that was visiting Costa Rica just last year. And they donated that sign over there with a Kill Bill Motmot on it, and to explain to the people what was the situation occurring with potential hybridization of Kill Bill Motmot and Broadbill Motmots in some areas of the Arenal Volcano National Park. And I was just thinking, like, well, this is not the solution, but this is one way. I think we all should try always to add coins to the hectare of forest, to show the world that 1 hectare of forest can produce more than what it's producing right now. I mean, I will just ask all of you if we can think together in a solution for this, because otherwise we are in serious troubles. And I think for the future of our generations, and this is my daughter, her name is Ibis, that curiously happens to be a bird, who will tell, yeah, Ibis that we call Ibis. It's my daughter, and she is there on her first ever time on a hanging bridge over the Sarapiquí River, close to my house. And yeah, what my point here is that if we don't find a solution for this, it will be a big problem, and equaling the income of every hectare of forest and productive land will be the only way we can ensure the protected areas and primary rainforests will be available for younger generations and for Ibis. So then this is basically the idea I just want to tell you today, and what I want to show you in here. And I would like to hear questions and comments if you have any. It's been a long journey for me, and I'm here. And I hope you like the short presentation I prepared for you. And I don't know, Sachin, if you are over there.
Thank you so much, Juan. I know this has been, I would say, like a personal story of Juan, how he kind of has traversed different parts of his life and how, he's gotten where he is today. And for me, I think it's really special to hear about these stories and different lands and how important a role we guys can play in conservation, because sometimes you're so focused in our own country, we don't realize what we're losing outside our country. So I think we'll start off by some of the questions. If anybody has, they can actually go ahead and type it in the chat, and then we can actually go ahead and take that. I think so. One of the first questions we have, Juan, is that what are your favorite places to bird in Costa Rica and why?
Great question. Yeah. Well, number one, I will say probably the foothills. Anywhere in the middle elevations are amazing, because it's where the lowlands and the highlands get a mix of diversity. And there's a lot of birds, a lot of the rarest birds that are found on those middle elevations. We're talking locations like the Arenal Volcano, Braulio Carrillo National Park, anywhere where the temperature is nice and stable. You don't need a jacket. It's not hot. And then birds like bare-neck umbrella bird, yellow-eared toucanet, three-wattle bellbird, sorry. They will be moving up and down the slope looking for the ripe fruits. And then you have more chances to find them if you spend more time in the middle elevations. That's probably where I like the most. And then if I have to pick up one specific location in the middle elevations to go bird and spend like a whole week, even a whole year, it will be probably the picture I show you. It's taken in the Children's Eternal Rainforest. As I told you, the largest private reserve of Costa Rica. They have a station that is called Pocosol Station. And this, I will show you the picture again. Just 1 second. Let me share the screen again, and then go back here. This one here. The water you see there, it's a crater of a volcano, of an old volcano. And all is surrounded by primary pristine foothill rainforest. And then you have this tiny little biological station with a few rooms located, built right on the side of this old volcano, old caldera of the volcano. And there's where you go. I mean, to get there, you have to drive about an hour on a very bumpy road. But then that's great because otherwise, and then you get there and there's nobody else. You're always on your own. So I will say this location is probably my favorite place I can bird in Costa Rica. You know, like I can be there for a whole year, and always, every time I walk the trails are huge. And then every time you walk, it's something new. And bare neck umbrella bird is there. And Lat is the best place in the country for Lattice-tailed trogon. So if you can come, I mean, I would go there. Plus, you leave the money to a non-profit organization that runs this place and protect the largest private reserve. So great place to go.
Thank you, Juan. The other question that I think a lot of us are actually wondering, me included, is different countries, there's a different mix or combination of how big a role the government plays in saving special places and making them preserves versus like non-profits who come in and help in the preservation. Like I think Colombia, there is, huge impact of non-profits actually really doing conservation. Same thing in Guatemala. How is it in Costa Rica? So one of the questions is like, is the Costa Rican government considering the area you were talking about, that you said is just going to go away, to preserve it? And what are the chances of they helping out?
Well, there's a strong, I mean, there's some presence of international organizations helping. There is a very interesting point here, and it's, unfortunately, like this guy. Let's go to real experiences in the field, because I'm here. I'm here in Costa Rica, right in the middle of all the pineapple plantations. Like my water is the one that is poisoned. And I had this problem like 3 times since I've been living here. Like I run out of water because they poison the water. So they just disconnect the water and then they just find a new spring because it's poison. And then this is happening here. And yeah, there are organizations helping here. There are big organizations. Everybody, it's aware of this. Actually, even myself got a granted, of amount of money to look for a hummingbird that it's disappeared from a volcano up in the northern part of Costa Rica, and that was great. I spent some great time there. But then you realize, like, when it comes to real application to achieve this that I told you, this is what I told you. I just hope you can still remember this phrase. It's impossible to save the rainforest if 1 hectare of pineapple produces more than 1 hectare of rainforest. And I hate to put it in numbers of production, but it's the way it has to be. It's a capitalist world in where we have learned one lesson, and it's that everything goes around money, and we cannot do anything to stop it. The system is not going to change. That's probably the solution, but the system is not going to change. So then what we get here, the help we get sometimes, it's these big organizations comes and finance researchers to go study the birds and find out what's the problem. Then researchers come out with a paper. This paper is published somewhere here. I myself have been published papers, and then these papers come back and they've been reinforced, they are enforced by the law. So you say like, okay, we found that you cannot feed wildlife in Costa Rica because that impacts the populations. And this is a real example. It's a real example. You cannot feed wildlife in Costa Rica. You cannot have bird feeders in Costa Rica. It's illegal because papers show that it's better if the birds just feed on their natural environment. So then I have this friend that I ask him the numbers, that lives close to me here. And I said like, hey man, you know what? And then the first thing he told me is, the government is telling me I cannot feed birds. So now all the bird photographers that were coming to my hotel are maybe not wanting to come because I cannot feed birds because the government said it's not good. And then I started thinking like, I mean, how is that these great papers are being published everywhere, are just turning around and hitting us in the back like, you know, it's against you now. Now this guy who's saving some tiny piece of rainforest cannot make more profit because there are regulations that are given by the researchers that are financed by these giant organizations. So they, to my eyes, and I'm not saying it's the case everywhere, and I'm not saying I'm right. To my eyes, there is something very, very, you know, complicated and dark there, that it's somehow the money that some of these organizations is coming from the same guys that have interest on having this pineapple producing more than the rainforest. Because that's a whole chain. You know, it's hard, you know, it's kind of shocking to see it, but it's like the only way I can see it. You know, why we cannot make more profitable the rainforest?
Juan, I'm sorry, I'm interrupting you, but when you say the amount of money the rainforest is making, in what ways? In ecotourism or lumber or some other ways?
In all possible ways. You know, like if you get, just get a sample. I'm just telling you to what I know, that it's my, you know, my closest piece of forest with my closest type of land production. So this is pineapple here. And then the forest is making money from tourism. But it's just that simple. The money we're getting from tourism is not the same money we're getting from pineapple. And the way we can make more money out of the rainforest without destroying the rainforest is blocked by the advances on preserving the rainforest. You know, like you cannot make more money out of the rainforest because you might damage, you might alter the behavior of these birds. And then what is the other option? Oh, let's cut it down and make pineapple. Like, and then you start thinking like you're indignated. I mean, I'm here, you know, I'm here. I'm not a researcher, you know, or I don't have a stable job in the government. I don't have any of that. I'm just here in the middle of a pineapple plantation talking about this. And
so talking about the pineapple plantations, Juan, are the pineapples, do they use a lot of pesticides, and does that finally leach into the ground and affect the wildlife also, or are most of the pineapple plantations are conscious and trying to produce, you know, like organic fruit?
Well, that's another topic, right? Pineapple plantations, yes. I mean, they do a lot of pesticides. They do poison the water and poison the wildlife around, you know, when the pesticides are washed by the water. But the first most important point is that you need an open field to plant pineapple and to plant pretty much any other product. Maybe coffee, it's more friendly. Yeah, you're right. But for pineapple, for palm oil, for most of the crops, you need to cut down the forest. And then if that forest is not protected, and even if it's protected, they will start cutting down trees, tree after tree, tree after tree, little by little, until it's an open field. Then they can put the pineapple on. So that's the whole point, you know, like, yeah. And how we stop that? The only way, I think, and this is an idea that came to my mind the other night, I was thinking about, the only way we can stop it is if that forest is producing more than the pineapple field. Then we will keep the forest. How we make this forest produce more? Tourism, yes, is not the only solution. There gotta be more ways to make it produce more money. And then, yeah, we have to just find on that point, you know, like.
Great. So one of the questions that's kind of popping up there from one of the guests is, like, I know there are people who are not cutting down the forest, like Bulgarian is, I think, another example where he has his own private preserve, right? Do you have some idea of like the percentage of, if it was a pineapple field and X amount of dollars were produced, like $6,000 per hectare, and if they have, you know, medium level of tourism, people coming there, is it like 1/10, half? How far are we to be able to compete with the, you know, pineapple plantation? And like you said, there has to be more, you know, like maybe some other fruit, some other ways, maybe some research, maybe some grants, but just by the tourism part, is it like very small, or is it like a significant, can it make a significant impact towards reaching the goal of parity?
I think there is a significant progress in some areas. Like what you're pointing, it's very much true. Like if you go close to the Arenal volcano, a big tourism destination, and you find a plot of nice primary rainforest, I'm pretty sure that area will cost a lot more. I mean, will be a lot more expensive than buying a pasture, a field of, you know, open pasture. And it's because, yeah, people on the small clusters of tourism like Arenal Volcano have found that the number of visitors pay a lot more money to go see that forest than to see the pasture, obviously. So there's no pineapple close to Arenal Volcano. And then I don't see the pineapple expanding that direction. The forest is way too expensive to buy just to cut it, you know, like, then you're right. I mean, there is some progress in some particular areas, in some clusters. And this is exactly what I was meaning. I mean, it's, of course, it's hard because it's not that everybody has a volcano, a beautiful volcano right next to their forest, you know, like it's what happened in Arenal. You know, you have a property that's worth a lot because you have a beautiful, you know, gorgeous volcano right next to it. So you can wake up every morning. Doesn't matter if you just built a small trail or just a, you know, old crappy house. People will be happy to wake up there and see the volcano. But then other areas like this, like here, they don't have a volcano. They only have one thing. And you know what thing is? Good birds. You know, we have good birds here. And then that's why, you know, one of my goals in this presentation was to let you know that birders and hardcore birders and crazy birders are extremely important for the conservation of this forest, because they're the only ones that are willing to pay money to go to remote places just to see birds, not volcanoes, no waterfalls, birds. And then guess what? The rarest birds, the best birds, require the deepest rainforest. So being a crazy birder that want to see the deepest, harder bird is actually something extremely positive for us down here. So don't be afraid to be a crazy birder. You know, like we need more of those.
Awesome. Awesome. I think we're pretty much out of time. I'm going to hand it over back to Nicole.
Thank you, Sachin. And thank you so much, Juan Diego, for sharing your story. I know I want to come bird with you. Maybe we'll have a trip down to see you. Thanks so much. And thanks everybody for being here tonight. I hope you have a great summer. We'll take a break, and our next member meeting and speaker series will be on September 15th. So good night. Have a good summer. Thanks so much, Juan Diego.
Thank you. My pleasure.
Thank you so much, guys.
Bye. Thank you for inviting me.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Good night, everybody.
Sure.